I'm often asked what the difference is between Nimbus Maps Elite and Nimbus Maps Essentials. Essentials obviously being the free platform, providing that data aggregation, that kind of information portal where you can log in, click around and see quite a lot of information on the left-hand side panel about various properties across the UK. And obviously Elite then is that next step up where a lot of the functionality and a lot of powerful analytics, things like that, are actually then enabled in that Elite platform that aren't available to the Essential customer. So there's quite a lot that Elite can do. What I wanted to do is just run through 4 or 5 of those kind of top things that Elite provides over and above the Essentials platform. And I suppose the first one that is worth kind of mentioning is that company search. So on the left-hand side over here, there's a little company icon there that you can click on. When you click on that and type into there, you can take any company, typically off the left-hand side panel, pop it into that little box there. What that will then do is it will then go back to Experian, it will link it through together, and it will say this company forms part of this bigger group if that's the case. And then it will offer you to then present that across the map. So it will give you the group structure, then the number of titles that company owns, and how that's split residential and commercial in terms of the property ownership, whether any leases or freeholds there. And then within that search, you can then click go. You'll then display it across the whole of the map, and then from that you can go into the exports and you can just download that estate into Excel. And that's really powerful for a number of reasons. One is if you want to go and see that estate, you want to understand, maybe I'm going to try and acquire a property off a particular company, you want to know what else they own, maybe I've bought something off that particular business, what else have they got, can I go and try and leverage that relationship that I've already created with that particular business. Kind of that's one of the sort of the key ways of doing it. Or I've heard that particular company there is in selling mode there, it's a fund and it's closing down, I want to go and see what else they've got in effect. That can be one really powerful way of using it. A second way then is looking at a company, maybe you've had an offer from a particular company you've never heard of before, and actually you want to understand a bit more about that particular business. Whether that's because they're saying we've got loads of properties and actually we're fantastic, we're a great buyer or a great tenant for you. Come on guys, let's do a deal. Well, actually you can use that company search just to go and interrogate that estate, understand exactly what they have and haven't bought and what they do or don't own, and make sure that you're really kind of clear about who that business is and whether they're doing what they say they're doing. Really kind of helpful thing. You can also use that sort of to go a stage further and say, well, actually, if this particular business has made an offer to me, is the offer they've put forward to me really the best they can offer me? So if they've offered it on a leasehold basis and they want to go and rent a building off you, then of course what you can do is you can go and download a copy of the latest sets of leases that they've taken and just double check that the covenants they're offering you and the headline rents and the rent-free periods and all that sort of stuff that kind of makes such a big difference to the underlying capital value when you decide maybe you want to dispose of it in due course. You can get all those things right if you use that Elite company search functionality. So kind of a few kind of key ways in which you can do that, whether that's upselling, whether that's trying to understand a tenant, a number of ways in which that can be really powerful. So that's the first one. Number 2 then is kind of the advanced filtering. So on the left-hand side panel over here, you get the access to the filters. And those filters then give you a number of ways in which you can thin the map out. So you can either use the top bit here, which says, well, actually I want to remove or add bits and pieces into the map, so I can toggle on the availability or take off the unregistered land or whatever it is I want to kind of do, whether I want to thin the map out to make it easier to use, whether I want to just see certain leases. So a typical example of that would be trying to find the commercial comps. So if I want to look along the high street and say, well, actually, what other retail properties have been let? Well, I can use that search there, click on the commercial comps rather, and just see those properties that have let. I can then go into the platform and download those leases and just see what kind of headline rents they are. Obviously within the platform, obviously within the Essentials platform, and the same within Elite. You have access to the rate assessments. You can go and see how big those buildings are and understand kind of what zone A rents maybe people are paying or something like that. So we can use it for that sort of thing. We can use it for residential comps. There's a big button on the left-hand side. You click that, it thins the map out, it shows you all the properties that have sold in the last couple of years, and then outputs that into Excel, where you can then see what the rates were per square foot, and links you back into things like Rightmove, where you can then understand kind of what the particulars look like. So was the inside of that building looking in good condition, with the kitchen and the bathrooms good, and all that sort of stuff. And then onto other things like industrial PD rights, kind of where are those small industrial units that have got the PD rights to convert them to residential, so that up to 500 square meters, no listing on them, and obviously in that right use within those chimney pods. You can click a button here and then go search in those areas and go find those buildings that might be suitable for you. So a number of ways in which the filters can be really powerful, and there's a load of 2-minute tips in the training section that sort of takes you through all of that and how you get the most out of that, hopefully. On On top of that then we have different ways in which you can find land. So again, we can use the filters to do that. We can use kind of search by site size and all this sort of stuff. But we also have things like the master map overlay. So people probably aren't familiar necessarily with that, but in effect, when you zoom in, you can use the master map overlay, and you can then see within the map, sort of by toggling on that different overlay, what you see is you see a much simpler map. And with that simple map, what that means is that your eye isn't necessarily distracted by trees and borders and this sort of stuff. And what you end up with is a very simple view where you can then start to see parts of land that just jump out at you. Obviously then you've got to go and get your access to it and all that sort of stuff, but actually you can use it also to find those kind of larger properties, maybe like this, or I guess maybe some flooding issues down there, but it becomes very clear and very apparent where those underdeveloped sites are. And off the back of that, you can unlock those opportunities. So a number of ways in which you can do that, sort of through looking through this or through the filters or whatever else. And there's 2-minute tips around how we find land in Elite. Really, really powerful sort of stuff. And the final bit then is really around planning constraints, planning overlays and exports. So this is where we sort of use the analytics to come to the next level with the understanding of the properties in areas maybe we're not familiar with. So if I can just zoom out a second, what we'll see is I've just got the green belt toggled on here. I'll pop it back onto the satellite view so we can sort of get our bearings. I'm in Summertown here at the moment in Oxford, and what you can see is kind of where the overlays of the green belt kind of wrap around this part of Oxford, and kind of where the land within or outside the green belt is available. We can do the same with things like SSIS. We can do it with areas of outstanding attribution and various different constraints. We can just plot on the map and just understand then where, on that kind of strategic basis, how that might affect things. We can also, within Elite, we have the planning enabled, so we can see all these kind of unregistered properties, for example, that then have a planning application behind them. We can go and use that to go and find out who the owners of those sites are. But also, just in the simple terms, looking at a particular site and seeing the planning history on that left-hand side is all kind of neat and simple and very easy. Then we can also use the exports on the right-hand side in that Elite function, where we can then search for keywords across various councils and say, well, actually, I'm going to go and build a supermarket, or I'm going to go and take a supermarket. Investment and buying a supermarket investment, and actually I just want to understand whether any kind of supermarkets that are kind of consented in the area, or kind of maybe if I want to go and rebuild one, or go and build one and kind of extend it, or something. I'm going to buy a one-stop and I'm going to extend it into a Tesco's Express or something like that. Then if I'm going to do that, then understanding what planning consents have been given, or what refusals have been refused, if you like, in that council and the neighbouring councils, then can give me a really interesting way of then trying to negotiate my own consent through that council. Can I use consents given in different councils to then say, well, actually, this is how you should deal with me in this council, because this is how the neighbouring council dealt with that particular application. It's only fair you deal with me in the same way you dealt with them, and they gave them the consent for these reasons, and my site looks just the same too. And therefore, it kind of just allows you to have that kind of clarity around what you're doing. You can even use it for things like searching for things like environmental impact assessments, because that then gives you an understanding. If I'm going to do a residential scheme in this area here, is there a big lump of land that's going to be redeveloped over here or something that's going to bring forward 300 units, and I'm going to do a little 10-unit scheme kind of in the centre of town, and all the demand's going to be mopped up by that big scheme that's being redeveloped. So we're going to do those developments, and actually understanding the planning, understanding what's going on nearby, using that exports, understanding the way in which the constraints wrap around the settlement I'm going to develop in is really, really important. Or indeed just understanding my own assets. Or indeed, obviously, advising customers and advising clients around their assets, making sure you're giving them the best advice you possibly can. If you're telling them actually maybe they could extend their footprint and it's in the green belt, you should be telling them that and saying, well, actually, it's in the green belt, so you might get a consent, but it's going to depend on the 5-year housing supply and whether that's all going to work or not. So just making sure that you fully understand that asset, the area that it sits within, and things like the Nimbus Maps report also kind of add to that. So a report you can generate on the go with any property across the UK. There's 24 million properties, and every single one's got a Nimbus Maps report you can go and download. And just to make sure that you're fully aware of that particular asset, the marketplace that it sits within, and everything that goes alongside it. So that's the difference in headline terms between the free Essentials package and the Elite package, is that depth of analysis, depth of understanding that you get between the two. Don't get me wrong, Essentials is a fantastic product. It's a product that not very long ago that people were paying a lot of money for. And now, because the data across the UK has become so available and so much cheaper now, most of it's free in terms of what that essential package offers. We believe that if data's free, we should be providing it for free at the same time. Obviously with Elite you get a lot more analytics, you get some other data sets that are very much not free, and that's then how sort of the difference between the two. If you want to trial it, there's a button in the Essentials platform. You just click on that at the top of the Essentials by the Search Here button. Click on that and you'll get a free 14-day trial of the platform, and you can see whether you like it yourselves. Thanks very much.